She was born in Denton, Texas. She's the oldest of 3 kids. Her dad was a Methodist minister, but then he met her mom, who was a member of the Church of Christ. And so he converted over to Church of Christ and was a minister then just all over North Texas. She was born in Denton and later had a brother and a sister that were born as well. And they just kind of lived all up and around that area. Mom had gone to ACC at the time, Abilene. When Mom finished there, she went to North Texas to get her library degree. And that's where she met Dad. Dad was raised going to different flavors of church, all Christian based, but I don't know that it was kind of a full-time gig. I think they kind of ebbed and flowed from what I understood with that. They got married and he was going into the Navy, or had been in the Navy, I believe. Then right after they got married, he went to OCS. They went through all of that, moved to Germany. I think that was their first duty station. After they'd been there a year, I guess, she found out she was pregnant, and she was super excited. They were super excited, and made it all the way to term, and she lost that baby. And then again, found out she was pregnant. And I don't know if she lost both babies over in Germany or if one was here and one was over there, but she lost a boy and a girl, both at term. One was stillborn, the other lived for a couple of days and then passed. I've always thought she was the bravest woman because she tried again. So I always sent her flowers on my birthday to tell her thank you for being silly enough to try again. My brother is buried, the baby is buried in Denton at the family burial spot. My sister was donated to science because they just didn't know what all was going on. So they were in Germany, and she didn't know yet that she was pregnant with me. They were about to fly back to the States, and she thought she just had really bad motion sickness, but it was me. She got to about, I guess, 6 or 7 months, and they knew she was a high-risk pregnancy, and so she was sent to Walter Reed. I was 5 weeks early, but I survived. Some of my favorite pictures are of her and Dad looking in to the little isolettes there because she couldn't touch me, he couldn't touch me for several weeks. Dad said that it was Valentine's Day that he got to hold me for the first time. So I was about 3 or 4 weeks old then. Actually, it was just me for the first 3 or 4 years, and then we adopted my brother. You know, she had just told Dad, wherever you go, we'll go. You know, she was very much like, I think like Ruth in that. We followed him all around the world. She just was just always that rock for us. So wherever we lived, it was always home. Before the boxes were even all unpacked, we had found a church. So Mom would usually teach, but she also would run the libraries at the church, whether it was 3 or 4 shelves of books or a dedicated space. That was just her favorite thing. My grandfather was extremely conservative. I mean, beyond conservative. And so there were certain types of music that there were only a few that were kind of allowed. The rest of it was all like, no, classical, but not this crazy rock and roll stuff. But my mom told me that whenever she would drop Fran off, that she would sit in the car and listen to Bill Haley and the Comets. Or whoever else happened to come on to the whatever the pop station was. And I remember my mouth just hitting the floor when she told me that. It's like, all these years, you would kind of raise an eyebrow at me for some of the crazy stuff I was listening to, and yet you had done it too. But she was quite the accomplished pianist. She would accompany programs and stuff at school, growing up as well as in college. She played the harp. She said she always felt like the nerd. She goes, I never felt like the cool kid. She loved sports. She loved to play basketball, loved to play softball. We lived in Turkey, and to me that was just the coolest thing. I loved it. Really neat. We did so much travel. We followed Paul's journeys, and we would go to all the different biblical sites. I just remember knowing that that was something that not everybody got to do. And I can remember church was in each other's homes, and I loved that. Hawaii was cool for several reasons. But again, being military family, we got to see so much of what got us into the war. She saw individuals. It wasn't just a crowd. She would see, somebody that might normally just kind of fade into the background. Mom would look for that person, just that the individual mattered. I can remember her saying, we've just always got to be ready. Like whenever things would be kind of tumultuous and all that, she would just say, we can't worry about it. We just always have to be ready. I'm glad she's not having to live through all of this stuff right now. I think that would be very troublesome to her. She was a lover of the books, that's for sure, and a protector of the written word. She had borrowed a book from the Pensacola Library. It was like a paperback book, probably 25 cents. She thought she'd returned it. Finally, it was like 6 or 8 months later, she's unpacking some stuff and she found that book. Cardinal sin for a librarian. So she calls them up. I am so sorry. I did not steal this book, just going on and on and on. And they're like, ma'am, it's worth 25 cents. It is not a big deal. She wrote him a check for like $10 and mailed it to cover whatever her fees were and the loss of the book. And that book is still around the house somewhere. And Dad kept going, let it go, Mary Nell. Just let it go. But she couldn't. Loving, long-suffering, supportive. She was definitely one that took her marriage vows very seriously. Just a great mom, a voracious reader, but especially the Bible. She was a teacher, and not just in the classroom, but whenever somebody would call up with a question or needing advice, she was a gentle teacher.